To be read at dusk by Charles Dickens. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. To be read at dusk by Charles Dickens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 of them. 5 couriers sitting on a bench outside the convent on the summit of the great St. Bernard in Switzerland, looking at the remote heights, stained by the setting sun as if a mighty quantity of red wine had been broached upon the mountain top, and had not yet had time to sink into the snow. This is not my simile. It was made for the occasion by the stoutest courier, who was a German. None of the others took any more notice of it than they took of me, sitting on another bench on the other side of the convent door, smoking my cigar like them, and, also like them, looking at the reddened snow, and at the lowly shed hard by, where the bodies of belated travellers, dug out of it, slowly wither away, knowing no corruption in that cold region. The wine upon the mountain top soaked in as we looked. The mountain became white, the sky a very dark blue. The wind rose, and the air turned piercing cold. The 5 couriers buttoned their rough coats. There being no safer man to imitate in all such proceedings than a courier, I buttoned mine. The mountain in the sunset had stopped the 5 couriers in a conversation. It is a sublime sight, likely to stop conversation. The mountain being now out of the sunset, they resumed. Not that I had heard any part of their previous discourse, for indeed I had not then broken away from the American gentleman in the traveller's parlour of the convent, who, sitting with his face to the fire, had undertaken to realize to me the whole progress of events which had led to the accumulation by the Honourable Ananias Dodger of one of the largest acquisitions of dollars ever made in our country. "My God!" said the Swiss courier, speaking in French, which I do not hold, as some authors appear to do, to be such an all-sufficient excuse for a naughty word, that I have only to write it in that language to make it innocent. "If you talk of ghosts—" "But I don't talk of ghosts," said the German. "Of what, then?" asked the Swiss. "If I knew of what, then," said the German, "I should probably know a great deal more." It was a good answer, I thought, and it made me curious. So I moved my position to that corner of my bench which was nearest to them, and leaning my back against the convent wall, heard perfectly, without appearing to attend. "Thunder and lightning," said the German, warming. "When a certain man is coming in to see you, unexpectedly, and, without his own knowledge, sends some invisible messenger to put the idea of him into your head all day, what do you call that? When you walk along a crowded street, at Frankfort, Milan, London, Paris, and think that a passing stranger is like your friend Heinrich, and then that another passing stranger is like your friend Heinrich, and so begin to have a strange foreknowledge that presently you'll meet your friend Heinrich, which you do, though you believed him at Trieste, what do you call that?" "It's not uncommon, either," murmured the Swiss, and the other 3. "Uncommon!" said the German. "It's as common as cherries in the Black Forest. It's as common as macaroni at Naples. And Naples reminds me, when the old Marchesa Senzanima shrieks at a card player on the Chiaja, as I heard and saw her, for it happened in a Bavarian family of mine, and I was overlooking the service that evening. I say, when the old Marchesa starts up at the card table, white through her rouge, and cries, 'My sister in Spain is dead,' I felt her cold touch on my back. And when that sister is dead at that moment, what do you call that? Or when the blood of San Gennaro liquefies at the request of the clergy, as all the world knows that it does regularly once a year in my native city," said the Neapolitan courier, after a pause, with a comical look. "What do you call that?" "That?" cried the German. "Well, I think I know a name for that." "Miracle?" said the Neapolitan, with the same sly face. The German merely smoked and laughed, and they all smoked and laughed. "Bah!" said the German presently. "I speak of things that really do happen. When I want to see the conjurer, I pay to see a professed one, and have my money's worth. Very strange things do happen without ghosts. Ghosts! Giovanni Baptista, tell your story of the English bride. There's no ghost in that, but something full as strange. Why, any man tell me what?" As there was a silence among them, I glanced around. He whom I took to be Baptista was lighting a fresh cigar. He presently went on to speak. He was a Genoese, as I judged. "The story of the English bride," said he. "Basta! One ought not to call so slight a thing a story. Well, it's all one. But it's true. Observe ye well, gentlemen, it's true. That which glitters is not always gold. But what I am going to tell is true." He repeated this more than once. 10 years ago I took my credentials to an English gentleman at the Long's Hotel in Bond Street, London, who was about to travel. It might be for 1 year, it might be for 2. He approved of them, likewise of me. He was pleased to make inquiry. The testimony that he received was favourable. He engaged me by the 6 months, and my entertainment was generous. He was young, handsome, very happy. He was enamoured of a fair young English lady with a sufficient fortune, and they were going to be married. It was the wedding trip, in short, that we were going to take. For 3 months' rest in the hot weather (it was early summer then) he had hired an old place on the Riviera, at an easy distance from my city, Genoa, on the road to Nice. Did I know that place? Yes, I told him I knew it well. It was an old palace with great gardens. It was a little bare, and it was a little dark and gloomy, being close surrounded by trees, but it was spacious, ancient, grand, and on the sea-shore. He said it had been so described to him exactly, and he was well pleased that I knew it. For it being a little bare of furniture, all such places were. For its being a little gloomy, he had hired it principally for the gardens, and he and my mistress would pass the summer weather in their shade. "So all goes well, Baptista?" said he. "Indubitably, signore, very well. We had a travelling chariot for our journey, newly built for us, and in all respects complete. All we had was complete. We wanted for nothing. The marriage took place. They were happy. I was happy, seeing all so bright, being so well situated, going to my own city, teaching my language in the rumble to the maid, la bella Carolina, whose heart was gay with laughter, who was young and rosy. The time flew, but I observed—listen to this, I pray," and here the courier dropped his voice—"I observed my mistress sometimes brooding in a manner very strange, in a frightened manner, in an unhappy manner, with a cloudy, uncertain alarm upon her. I think that I began to notice this when I was walking up hills by the carriage side, and master had gone on in front. At any rate, I remember that it impressed itself upon my mind one evening in the south of France, when she called to me to call master back, and when he came back, and walked for a long way, talking encouragingly and affectionately to her, with his hand upon the open window, and hers in it. Now and then, he laughed in a merry way, as if he were bantering her out of something. By and by she laughed, and then all went well again. It was curious. I asked la bella Carolina, the pretty little one, was mistress unwell? No. Out of spirits? No. Fearful of bad roads or brigands? No. And what made it more mysterious was, the pretty little one would not look at me in giving answer, but would look at the view. But one day she told me the secret. "If you must know," said Carolina, "I find, from what I have overheard, that mistress is haunted." "How haunted?" "By a dream." "What dream?" "By a dream of a face. For 3 nights before her marriage she saw a face in a dream, always the same face, and only one." "A terrible face?" "No, the face of a dark, remarkable-looking man, in black, with black hair and a grey moustache. A handsome man, except for a reserved and secret air. Not a face she ever saw, or at all like a face she ever saw. Doing nothing in the dream but looking at her fixedly, out of darkness." "Does the dream come back?" "Never. The recollection of it is all her trouble." "And why does it trouble her?" Carolina shook her head. "That's master's question," said la bella. "She didn't know. She wonders why herself. But I heard her tell him, only last night, that if she was to find a picture of that face in our Italian house, which she is afraid she will, she did not know how she could ever bear it." "Upon my word, I was fearful after this," said the Genoese courier, "of our coming to the old palazzo, lest some such ill-starred picture should happen to be there. I knew there were many there, and as we got nearer and nearer to the place, I wished the whole gallery in the crater of Vesuvius. To mend the matter, it was a stormy, dismal evening when we, at last, approached that part of the Riviera. It thundered, and the thunder of my city and its environs, rolling along among the high hills, is very loud. The lizards ran in and out of the chinks in the broken stone wall of the garden, as if they were frightened. The frogs bubbled and croaked their loudest. The sea wind moaned, and the wet trees dripped. And the lightning, body of San Lorenzo, how it lightened! We all know what an old place in or near Genoa is, how time and the sea air have blotted it, how the drapery painted on the outer walls has peeled off in great flakes of plaster, how the lower windows are darkened with rusty bars of iron, how the courtyard is overgrown with grass, how the outer buildings are dilapidated, how the whole pile seems devoted to ruin. Our palazzo was one of true kind. It had been shut up close for months, years. It had an earthy smell, like a tomb. The scent of the orange trees on the broad back terrace, and of the lemons ripening on the wall, and of some shrubs that grew around a broken fountain, had got into the house somehow, and had never been able to get out again. There was, in every room, an aged smell, grown faint with confinement. It pined in all the cupboards and drawers. In the little rooms of communication between great rooms, it was stifling. If you turned a picture, to come back to the pictures, there it still was, clinging to the wall behind the frame, like a sort of bat. The lattice blinds were close shut, all over the house. There were 2 ugly grey old women in the house, to take care of it. One of them was a spindle, who stood winding and mumbling in the doorway, and who would as soon have let in the devil as in the air. Master, mistress, la bella Carolina, and I went all through the palazzo. I went first, though I have named myself last, opening the windows and the lattice blinds, and shaking down on myself splashes of rain and scraps of mortar, Now and then a dozing